What if the thoughts in your mind aren't all your own? What if some of them are planted to weaken you, confuse you, and slowly take control? Listen carefully. Every whisper of fear, every surge of doubt, every voice telling you you're not enough is not your identity. It's a battle for your authority. But here's the truth they don't want you to realize. You have the power to silence every demonic influence the moment you recognize it. You were not created to be mentally enslaved. You were designed to rule your thoughts, to command your atmosphere, and to walk in unshakable peace. The moment you take control of your mind, speak truth over lies, and refuse to entertain darkness, every force trying to dominate you begins to lose its grip. This is not just motivation, this is spiritual warfare, and today you're taking your mind back. Recognizing the source of negative thoughts is where everything begins, because you can't fight what you don't understand. Most people go through life assuming every thought that crosses their mind belongs to them. That's the first mistake. Not every voice in your head is your own voice. Some thoughts are shaped by fear, past wounds, insecurity, or external influence, and when you fail to question them, you give them permission to stay. You let them settle in, grow roots, and slowly define how you see yourself and the world around you. Think about it. How many times have you suddenly felt unworthy, afraid, or anxious without a clear reason? One moment you're fine, and the next moment your mind is filled with doubt. Those thoughts don't just appear randomly. They are often triggered, influenced, or reinforced by something deeper. If you don't pause and examine them, they begin to feel like truth. And once a lie feels like truth, it becomes dangerous. It starts shaping your decisions, your confidence, and even your future. Recognition requires awareness. It means stepping back and observing your thoughts instead of immediately reacting to them. When a negative thought enters your mind, don't just accept it. Question it. Ask yourself, where is this coming from? Does this align with who I truly am? Is this building me or breaking me? That moment of questioning creates space between you and the thought, and in that space you regain control. Without that awareness, you become a passive receiver, allowing anything and everything to influence your mind. Another important part of recognition is understanding patterns. Negative thoughts are rarely random. They follow familiar cycles. Maybe it's a voice that always shows up when you're about to do something meaningful, telling you that you're not ready. Maybe it appears when you're alone, reminding you of past failures or mistakes. These patterns are not coincidences. They are repeated strategies designed to weaken your confidence and keep you stuck. Once you start noticing these patterns, you stop being surprised by them. And when you're no longer surprised, you're no longer controlled. It's also important to separate your identity from your thoughts. Just because you think something doesn't mean it defines you. A thought saying, I'm not good enough, doesn't make it true. It's just a thought, nothing more, nothing less. The problem is that many people merge their identity with their thoughts. They hear something negative and immediately internalize it. Over time, those thoughts become beliefs, and those beliefs become limitations. But when you learn to observe your thoughts instead of owning them, you break that cycle. You also need to be honest with yourself. Some negative thoughts come from internal struggles, fear, insecurity, past trauma. Others may feel like they come from outside influences, like pressure from people, environments, or spiritual beliefs. Regardless of where they come from, the key is not to ignore them, but to identify them clearly. Ignoring them doesn't make them disappear. It just gives them more room to operate in the background. Recognition brings them into the light, and once something is exposed, it loses a lot of its power. Another layer of this is emotional awareness. Thoughts and emotions are deeply connected. A negative thought often brings a negative emotion with it: fear, sadness, anger, or anxiety. When you feel a sudden shift in your emotions, that's a signal. It's your mind alerting you that something just entered your thought space. Instead of reacting emotionally, pause and trace it back. What thought triggered this feeling? That's how you identify the root. And when you find the root, you can deal with it directly instead of being overwhelmed by the emotion. Recognizing the source of negative thoughts is not about becoming paranoid or overanalyzing every single idea that comes into your mind. It's about developing a healthy awareness, a filter. Just like you wouldn't allow anything harmful into your body, you shouldn't allow anything harmful to settle in your mind without question. Your mind is powerful, but it's also sensitive. What you allow in will eventually shape what comes out. The moment you start recognizing your thoughts instead of blindly accepting them, everything begins to shift. You become more intentional. You become more grounded. You stop reacting and start responding. And most importantly, you take back control. Because at the end of the day, control over your mind is control over your life. Rejecting fear, doubt, and mental manipulation is not something that happens automatically. It's a decision you have to make over and over again, especially when those thoughts feel the most convincing. Fear has a way of sounding logical. Doubt can feel like wisdom, and manipulation often disguises itself as your own inner voice. That's why so many people don't challenge these thoughts. They believe them. They accept them as truth without realizing they're being led in the wrong direction. Fear usually enters quietly. It doesn't always come as panic or anxiety. Sometimes it shows up as hesitation. It whispers, "Wait a little longer," "You're not ready," or "What if something goes wrong?" And while caution can be healthy, fear goes beyond that. It paralyzes you. It keeps you stuck in a place where nothing grows. If you don't actively reject it, fear becomes a permanent filter through which you see every opportunity. You stop trying, stop risking, and slowly stop believing in what's possible for your life. Doubt works in a similar way, but it attacks your identity more directly. It questions your ability, your worth, and your purpose. It tells you that you're not capable, that others are better, that your efforts won't lead anywhere. Over time, if left unchecked, doubt can shrink your confidence to the point where you no longer trust yourself. And when you don't trust yourself, you start depending on external validation for everything. That's a dangerous place to be because it means your sense of worth is no longer in your control. Mental manipulation is even more subtle. It blends fear and doubt together and presents them as facts. It convinces you that negative thinking is just being realistic. It makes you believe that expecting the worst is a form of protection, but in reality, it's conditioning your mind to operate from a place of limitation. It narrows your vision and keeps you focused on problems instead of possibilities. If you don't recognize this, you'll keep reinforcing those patterns without even realizing it. Rejecting these influences starts with awareness, but it doesn't stop there. Awareness shows you what's happening, but rejection is what changes it. When a fearful or doubtful thought enters your mind, you have to make a conscious choice not to entertain it. That doesn't mean pretending it doesn't exist. It means refusing to give it authority. You acknowledge it, and then you challenge it. You ask, "Is this helping me or holding me back?" If it's holding you back, it doesn't deserve your attention. This process requires mental discipline. Your mind is used to certain patterns, and breaking those patterns takes effort. At first, it might feel unnatural to push back against your own thoughts. You might even feel resistance, as if part of you wants to hold on to the fear or doubt. That's normal. It's a sign that those patterns have been there for a while, but the more you practice rejecting them, the easier it becomes. Over time, your mind begins to adjust, and what once felt automatic starts to lose its influence. Another important part of rejection is replacing what you remove. You can't just eliminate fear and doubt. You have to fill that space with something stronger. That could be truth, confidence, faith, or clarity. When you replace negative thoughts with positive, grounded ones, you're not just defending your mind, you're strengthening it. You're training it to focus on what empowers you instead of what weakens you. It's also important to understand that rejection is not a one-time action. It's a daily practice. Fear and doubt don't disappear forever. They try to come back, especially in moments of stress or uncertainty. But each time they return, you have another opportunity to stand your ground. And every time you reject them, you reinforce your control. You remind yourself that you are not a passive recipient of thoughts. You are the one who decides what stays and what goes. There will be moments when the thoughts feel overwhelming, when fear seems louder than your confidence and doubt feels stronger than your belief. In those moments, rejection becomes even more important. It's easy to reject negativity when you feel strong, but real growth happens when you choose to reject it even when you feel weak. That's where resilience is built. At its core, rejecting fear, doubt, and mental manipulation is about reclaiming your authority. It's about understanding that your mind is not a place for anything and everything to live freely. It's a space that you have the right to protect, guide, and direct. And once you fully embrace that responsibility, you stop being controlled by your thoughts and start controlling them instead. Speaking truth and authority over your mind begins with understanding that your inner dialogue is not neutral. It is shaping your reality every single day. The words you repeat to yourself, whether silently or out loud, become the framework through which you interpret life. If your mind is filled with uncertainty, negativity, and self-criticism, then your actions will follow that direction. But when you intentionally speak truth, grounded, steady, and empowering, you begin to shift the entire atmosphere of your thinking. This isn't about pretending everything is perfect. It's about choosing a perspective that strengthens you instead of weakening you. Many people underestimate how powerful their own voice is. They wait for encouragement from others, for validation from the outside, not realizing that the most consistent voice they hear is their own. And if that voice is filled with doubt, it becomes difficult to move forward with confidence. Speaking truth is about taking control of that voice and making it work for you, not against you. It's about saying, I am capable, even when you feel uncertain, or I will figure this out, even when you don't yet see the solution. These statements may seem simple, but repeated consistently, they begin to rewire how you think. Authority comes from belief. If you speak positive words but don't believe them at all, they won't have much impact. That's why it's important to start with truths that feel grounded and real. You don't have to jump straight to extreme confidence. You can begin with honesty. For example, instead of forcing yourself to say, I'm perfect, you might say, I am improving or I am learning. These are truths you can stand on, and as you repeat them, your belief grows stronger. Over time, your words carry more weight because they are backed by conviction. Another key part of this process is consistency. Speaking truth once or twice won't override years of negative thinking. Your mind learns through repetition. Just like negative thoughts became strong through repeated exposure, positive and truthful thoughts gain strength the same way. It's a daily practice. It might feel repetitive at first, but that repetition is what builds a new mental foundation. Eventually, those empowering thoughts begin to show up automatically, replacing the old patterns without you having to force them. It's also important to speak truth in moments when it matters most, when you feel pressure, fear, or doubt. Anyone can think positively when everything is going well, but the real test comes when things feel uncertain. In those moments, your words act as anchors. When your mind starts to spiral, speaking truth can ground you. It reminds you of what is real, what is possible, and what is within your control. It brings clarity in the middle of confusion. Authority over your mind also means setting boundaries with your thoughts. Not every idea deserves your attention. When a thought tries to pull you into negativity, you have the right to interrupt it. You can mentally say, no, this is not helpful, and redirect your focus. That act of interruption is powerful. It shows that you are not passively accepting everything that enters your mind. You are actively choosing what aligns with your growth and what doesn't. Another layer of speaking truth is aligning your words with your actions. When you tell yourself that you are disciplined, confident, or focused, your actions should reflect that as much as possible. This creates a feedback loop. Your words influence your actions, and your actions reinforce your words. Together, they strengthen your sense of authority. Over time, this alignment builds trust within yourself. You begin to believe your own voice because you see it reflected in what you do. It's also helpful to create intentional moments where you speak truth without distraction. This could be in the morning before your day begins or at night before you sleep. In those quiet moments, your mind is more receptive. Repeating clear, focused statements during these times can have a deeper impact. You're not just reacting to thoughts, you're proactively shaping them. There will be times when speaking truth feels difficult, especially if you've spent a long time thinking in a negative way. Your mind might resist. Old thoughts might try to come back stronger, but that doesn't mean the process isn't working. It means change is happening. Growth often feels uncomfortable at first because it's unfamiliar. The key is to stay consistent, even when it feels challenging. At its core, speaking truth and authority over your mind is about ownership. It's recognizing that your thoughts are not random forces you have to live with. They are something you can guide. When you choose your words carefully, repeat them consistently, and back them with belief and action, you begin to take full control. And once you have that control, your mind becomes a place of strength, clarity, and direction instead of confusion and limitation. Guarding your thoughts with discipline is where real transformation begins, because awareness alone is not enough. You have to actively protect what enters and stays in your mind. Your mind is like an open space, and if you don't set boundaries, anything can walk in. Negativity, fear, distractions, and influences that slowly shape how you think without you even realizing it. Discipline is what turns that open space into a controlled environment. It's what allows you to decide what deserves your attention and what doesn't. Most people don't realize how much their thoughts are influenced by what they consume daily, the conversations they engage in, the content they watch, the environments they stay in. All of these feed the mind. If you constantly expose yourself to negativity, criticism, or chaos, it becomes much harder to maintain clarity and focus. Guarding your thoughts means being intentional about these inputs. It means asking yourself, is this helping me grow, or is it filling my mind with noise? That question alone can change what you allow into your mental space. Discipline also shows up in how you respond to distractions. Your mind will naturally wander, especially in a world full of constant stimulation. Notifications, social media, random thoughts, everything competes for your attention. Without discipline, your focus gets scattered, and scattered thinking leads to weak decision-making. Guarding your thoughts means training your mind to return to what matters. It's about catching yourself when you drift and gently bringing your attention back to your priorities. That repeated act of refocusing strengthens your mental control over time. Another important aspect of discipline is consistency in your mental habits. Just like physical habits, mental habits are built through repetition. If you allow negative thinking patterns to repeat unchecked, they become automatic. But if you consistently interrupt those patterns and replace them with better ones, your mind begins to adapt. This doesn't happen overnight. It takes patience and commitment. But every time you choose discipline over impulse, you reinforce a stronger mental structure. Guarding your thoughts also means setting internal boundaries. Not every thought deserves to be explored. Some thoughts are distractions disguised as important ideas. Others are simply echoes of past experiences that no longer serve you. Discipline is the ability to recognize when a thought is leading you in the wrong direction and choosing not to follow it. That choice may seem small in the moment, but over time, it shapes the overall direction of your thinking. It's also important to understand that discipline is not about being rigid or harsh with yourself. It's about being intentional and consistent. There will be moments when your mind slips into old patterns. That's normal. Discipline is not about perfection. It's about returning to control as quickly as possible. Instead of criticizing yourself for losing focus, you simply acknowledge it and redirect. That approach keeps you moving forward without creating unnecessary frustration. Another layer of guarding your thoughts is emotional discipline. Your emotions can influence your thinking just as much as your thoughts influence your emotions. When you're overwhelmed, stressed, or frustrated, your mind becomes more vulnerable to negative patterns. Discipline in these moments means slowing down instead of reacting impulsively. It means giving yourself a moment to breathe, to observe what's happening internally, and to choose a response rather than being driven by emotion. This kind of control strengthens your ability to stay grounded, even in difficult situations. Your environment plays a significant role in this process as well. If you surround yourself with people and situations that constantly drain your energy or reinforce negative thinking, it becomes harder to maintain discipline. Guarding your thoughts sometimes means making difficult choices about where you spend your time and who you listen to. It's not about isolating yourself, it's about creating an environment that supports your mental clarity and growth. Discipline also involves creating routines that support a healthy mind. Simple habits like taking time to reflect, limiting distractions, or setting clear goals for your day can make a big difference. These routines act as anchors, keeping your mind focused and organized. When your mind has structure, it's less likely to drift into chaos. And when chaos is reduced, clarity becomes easier to maintain. There will be times when discipline feels challenging, especially when you're tired or overwhelmed. In those moments, it's easy to fall back into old patterns because they're familiar and require less effort. But those are the moments when discipline matters the most. Choosing to stay focused, to protect your thoughts, and to maintain your boundaries even when it's difficult, that's what builds true mental strength. At its core, guarding your thoughts with discipline is about responsibility. It's recognizing that your mind is one of your most valuable assets and it deserves to be protected. When you take that responsibility seriously, you stop allowing random influences to shape your thinking. You become more intentional, more focused, and more in control. And as that control grows, so does your ability to create a life that reflects clarity, purpose, and strength. Strengthening your spirit through faith and focus is about building an inner foundation that cannot be easily shaken, no matter what comes against your mind. Your spirit is the core of who you are. It's where your sense of purpose, resilience, and inner peace comes from. When that core is weak, your thoughts become unstable, easily influenced by fear, doubt, and external pressure. But when your spirit is strong, your mind follows. You become grounded, steady, and less reactive to the chaos around you. Faith plays a central role in this process. It's not just about belief in something higher, it's about trust. Trust that your life has meaning, that your struggles are not pointless, and that you are capable of moving forward even when things feel uncertain. Faith gives you a sense of direction when your mind is filled with questions. It allows you to hold on to something solid when everything else feels unclear. Without faith, your thoughts can easily drift toward negativity because the mind tends to fill uncertainty with fear. But with faith, you replace that fear with a quiet confidence that things will work out, even if you don't yet understand how. Focus, on the other hand, is what protects that faith. It's what keeps your attention aligned with what truly matters instead of being pulled in every direction. In a world full of distractions, maintaining focus is a challenge, but it's also a necessity. Your mind will naturally wander, especially when faced with stress or uncertainty. Strengthening your spirit means training your focus to return to your values, your goals, and your sense of purpose. It's about deciding again and again what deserves your attention. When faith and focus work together, they create a powerful balance. Faith gives you the belief to keep going, and focus gives you the discipline to stay on track. One without the other can feel incomplete. Faith without focus can become passive, while focus without faith can feel empty or forced. But together, they build a steady, intentional way of thinking that supports your growth. One of the most effective ways to strengthen your spirit is through consistent reflection. Taking time to pause, think, and reconnect with what you believe in allows your mind to reset. It gives you a chance to step away from noise and realign with what truly matters. This doesn't have to be complicated. It can be as simple as a few quiet moments in your day where you check in with yourself, reminding yourself of your purpose and what you stand for. These moments of reflection act like anchors, keeping you grounded even when life feels overwhelming. Another important part of this process is choosing what you focus on daily. Your focus shapes your mindset. If you constantly focus on problems, your mind will feel heavy and restricted. But if you intentionally focus on solutions, growth, and progress, your mindset begins to shift. This doesn't mean ignoring challenges. It means approaching them with a perspective that looks for a way forward instead of getting stuck in negativity. Over time, this shift in focus strengthens your ability to stay positive and resilient. Strengthening your spirit also involves letting go of what weakens it. This could be negative influences, unhealthy habits, or thought patterns that drain your energy. Holding on to these things makes it harder to build a strong inner foundation. Letting go doesn't always happen instantly, it's a process. But each step you take toward removing what doesn't serve you creates more space for clarity, strength, and peace. It's also important to surround yourself with influences that support your growth. The people you listen to, the content you engage with, and the environments you spend time in all affect your spirit. When you're surrounded by encouragement, positivity, and purpose-driven thinking, it becomes easier to stay focused and maintain your faith. On the other hand, constant exposure to negativity can slowly weaken your mindset. Being intentional about your environment is a key part of protecting and strengthening your spirit. There will be moments when your faith feels tested and your focus feels scattered. Life has a way of challenging even the strongest mindset. In those moments, it's important to return to the basics. Remind yourself of what you believe. Take a step back and refocus your attention. You don't have to have everything figured out at once. Strength comes from consistently choosing to return to your foundation, even after moments of doubt or distraction. Over time, as you continue to build your faith and train your focus, you'll notice a shift. Your thoughts become calmer, your reactions become more controlled, and your sense of direction becomes clearer. You're no longer easily shaken by every challenge or negative influence. Instead, you carry a steady confidence that comes from within, a confidence that isn't dependent on external circumstances. At its core, strengthening your spirit through faith and focus is about creating stability within yourself. It's about building a mindset that remains strong regardless of what happens around you. When your spirit is strong, your mind becomes a place of clarity, resilience, and purpose. And from that place, you're able to face challenges with confidence, make decisions with intention, and move forward with a sense of peace that isn't easily disturbed.